Hey guys, it's MugenLord here, and today I want to talk about Microsoft and the Xbox brand because, my God, for the past couple of weeks, we just been hearing bad news and L's being taken from Microsoft themselves when it comes to the Xbox console. And I just want to give my overall thoughts of what's been going on with Microsoft and also just give you my personal opinions and my experience with the Xbox brand, ever since the release. So before we dive into this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell for more gaming content here on this channel. Okay. So we're going to dive right into it. So Microsoft has been just been, I don't know, man, just been going through it. And I feel sorry for the community and its fan base because they've been very loyal and they've been defending the Xbox. But after all the recent news, especially with Redfall, going to release at 30 frames per second, and the game doesn't look as great as it's been advertised. And then, of course, we have the whole Activision Blizzard and the Xbox, merger that was supposed to happen, but it's been blocked. But Microsoft still can somehow, I guess you can say, fight against that, appeal it, but we have to wait and see. But there's been so much going on, and especially with the Game Pass and how that's affecting physical sales, and that people are not buying games, which we'll go farther into that later in this video. But there's just so much bad news and so many disappointing news that's been happening with the Xbox brand, and I definitely will just want to just give my take and just give you my thoughts on it, because if you guys don't know and you guys are pretty much new and just finding out or just starting to understand the Xbox brand, and maybe you guys haven't been around when the Xbox was first released, way back. It was almost going on it's like 2 decades now since the the last Xbox, the very first Xbox. And I would say this, man, today people sees all of the faults that the Xbox brand has and see all the L's Microsoft been having for the past couple of years, but it seemed like people have forgotten the impact that Microsoft have had on the industry with the Xbox brand. I was there since the very beginning, and a lot of people's not giving Xbox the credit that it deserves as well. I mean, they deserve a lot of criticism, but they're not also given a lot of credit, because day one, man, the Microsoft and the Xbox brand had revolutionized and pretty much impacted the gaming industry into what we know today. And that's for the simple fact is that we never had an American console for a very long time. We had the Atari back in the day that jump started the gaming industry at some point, but the Atari had just crashed and burned. It failed, and then they kept releasing failure console after failure console, especially the Atari Jaguar, which I own too, which is a crappy system. And then we also supposed to have the Atari crowdfunded console. I'm not even sure if it ever got into people's hands. If it did, you see that it really didn't do anything as far as generating more eyes on the Atari brand or in everything. But when it came to the Microsoft Xbox, man, when it first was announced, and I remember back in 7th grade, and I was in school with my friends, and I had the Philadelphia Inquirer where they showed the actual console, and he was saying that Microsoft is stepping into the console race. I said, man, I definitely want to see how this is going to go with Microsoft, because everybody only knew Microsoft as them creating Windows. A lot of people in Flight Simulator and stuff like that, but them actually going at it with a console. And I always thought, like, hey, these guys are into computers and stuff, so I don't see how this could fail. But we still wasn't sure, because when it came to the console market, it was dominated by the Japanese market. Japanese developers pretty much dominated the console space. And what made Microsoft so special and how they impacted the industry is because the Microsoft brand has created a platform for Western developers to start actually really developing for game consoles. Because if you don't know, most Western developers stick to just designing games for the PC. If you wanted to play Western style games, most of it was relegated to the PC. But with the Xbox brand and the console itself, a lot of developers, Western developers, came over into the console space. And when it comes to developing games, most Western developers are more familiar with the PC, hardware, opposed of Japanese in their consoles and stuff. Japanese developers more so designed for the console. So now that you have a platform and a console that is more open and more familiar and close to what Western developers are familiar with, we started seeing more American Western style developed games coming over to consoles. Because come on guys, if it wasn't for Microsoft, we probably wouldn't see games like Call of Duty, Halo, Gears of War, BioShock, and many other Western developed games over on consoles. We probably would have got them much later, but Microsoft really opened that floodgate for that experience, especially when it comes to also does with the Morrowind series and Skyrim. All that is because Xbox had created that opening, that pathway to bring these experiences here since day one. And what I loved most about the original Xbox, to me, that was the multiplayer console. No longer had we ever, especially in my house or when we got together at our uncle's house for game night, which I talked about in plenty of other videos, Nintendo 64 had dominated because of the multiplayer. You had 4 controller ports. We didn't really mess with the Dreamcast much at all, even though they had 4-player games. But Nintendo 64 was that console when it came to local competitive play and just playing in the same living room, you know, with friends and family and stuff. GoldenEye 007, Mario 64, Star Fox 64, WCW versus NWO, WrestleMania 2000, and WWF No Mercy. The list can go on with all the multiplayer games and experiences that we had with the Nintendo 64. But once the Xbox came out, that pretty much Nintendo wasn't even mentioned in our game night spaces. And in fact, we pretty much ditched the PS2. We didn't play much of the Dreamcast or even the GameCube for that matter. We all played the Xbox because it had that multiplayer local experience, and it was the console where you was able to hook up. You was able to hook up multiple Xboxes into a hub, a LAN. So we had 4 Xbox consoles. We had about 16-player Halo Team Slayers, Free For All, Capture the Flag, and we had 2 Xbox setups downstairs and 2 upstairs, and we all used to get together and fiend for hours on hours and hours. We used to order pizza and just get together and just had a good time, and we just continued that trend. When it came to Dead or Alive 3, that was a 4-player multiplayer tag team game. You couldn't tell us anything, man. We just Crimson Sky. It was just Unreal Championship. It was just all these games that we was able to just play on the Xbox game console, which I love so much, and not enough people give credit for, or a lot of you who are new to this channel may be too young to remember what the original Xbox and the Xbox brand had brought to the gaming industry. And it was also one of the first consoles that had our built-in hard drive, so you no longer had to rely on a memory card like most consoles had to. You can get a memory card for the Xbox, for your Xbox, so you can be able to carry your data around, but you didn't have to. And then all the modifications that you can do to the original Xbox, it was just phenomenal. It was just amazing, man. And that machine was a beefy machine. It was so big, it was so heavy due to the hard drive space, but it was so much that you was able to do with the Xbox. And Xbox had brought so much to the table. And hell, I remember when I first saw the Xbox and got the Duke controller right here. I love this controller, one of my favorite game controllers of all time. Even though I was young in the 7th grade, I had big hands, so there's like a perfect controller, you know, for the console, in my personal opinion. Still love this, and I know you guys may rag on me about that, but I really love the Duke controller. But it was something about the Xbox brand that really changed the game, and it really helped the industry. And of course, it did have its long-term effects when it comes to Western developed games, because the Western developed games developers began to dominate the Japanese developers, and now the Japanese developers, or the Japanese market, has shrunk down in size, and now Western developers and games have pretty much took over the game industry. And I would say Microsoft is responsible for that, and I would say that, hey, they also innovated, you know, online gaming with the Xbox Live. We have to admit, man, Xbox Live, especially for its time, was a totally different experience. It was the wild, wild west. You know, like, yes, you was able to do some of these things on the PC, and I will still give credit to the Sega Dreamcast for attempting it. And Dreamcast was able to walk so that Microsoft and the Xbox was able to run. And with the Xbox Live, man, it was the first time that you was able to pretty much have a game console and then go online and talk to other people from any parts of the world on your microphone, hearing somebody else's voice, and that this person may be in a whole nother country, which is so foreign at the time. And then, of course, they capitalized on it when they moved to the Xbox 360. And still, I would say to this day, Xbox 360, that was my favorite console of that generation. When the Xbox 360 had came out, I was totally, completely sold on it. And the thing about Microsoft and the Xbox at the time, not only that they had the multiplayer, you know, to an expert level, they have also had the multiplats to an expert level. They were the superior console when it came to multiplats. So not only did they have their first party games, they also had their multiplats. And that's why I played my Xbox more than anything. All my friends had an Xbox 360. My brothers and I had an Xbox 360. And besides that, we all owned all the consoles of that generation. So I had a PS3, but my PS3 collected dust. I hardly touched my PS3. When I did have games for the PS3, they were more so exclusives, and most exclusives I didn't really care for anyway. But the Xbox 360, hell yeah. I love the Xbox 360, and the Xbox Live had definitely stepped things up a notch even more with Halo 3, Dead or Alive 4, Resident Evil 5, and the list goes on and on with their multiplayer games. And it was like you really couldn't get that experience anywhere else but the Xbox brand. And I was hoping that with the Xbox Series S, the Xbox Series X, is that we'll get that version of Xbox that we have missed for almost over a decade now, because they really dropped the ball with the Xbox One. And I would say that the Xbox One is the only Xbox console, and that's the only generation where I didn't own all three consoles. I refused to get the Xbox One because, one, the PS4 was much more powerful, so they had the more powerful ports, so it was no sense of getting the Xbox One. And then on top of that, you know, when it came to their exclusives, they didn't really have the exclusives, and they didn't have any Japanese developer games being released, third-party games being released on it. And because if you guys don't know, I more so prefer Japanese developed games over Western games. That's why with the Xbox Series X, I tried my best, and I'm going to say this, it may sound cringy, it may sound funny, but I try to treat my Xbox Series X, I want to treat it like as if it's a Dreamcast. But I wanted to more so get games, Japanese developed games for my Xbox Series X, and I try my best to try to support as many Japanese developers for the Xbox Series X and the Xbox brand, especially when it comes to JRPGs, because I have Star Ocean for the Xbox Series X. I also have the Dealfield Chronicles made by Square Enix as well for the Xbox Series X. I also have Scarlet Nexus from Bandai Namco for the Xbox Series X. And I also have one of my favorite games, JRPGs of the generation, which is Sega's Yakuza Like a Dragon for the Xbox Series X. So these are the games so far that I have for the Xbox Series X, and I played the hell out of every last one of them, and still I have my intentions on getting more. Now the thing is, I haven't been gaming as much. The last time I really touched a game console was back in Christmas of 2022, and I just got back to playing my consoles again now that the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC expansion had just released, which I'll be doing a video on that later, shameless plug. But when it comes to the Xbox Series X, I try to treat it as if it's like the Dreamcast 3 or something like that. And I really want to show, support when it comes to Japanese developed games. And that's something that the Xbox brand is most certainly lacking. It needs more third-party support, and especially more so Japanese third-party support to pretty much pull in more gamers like me who enjoy Japanese developed games. And the thing is, Microsoft, I don't know what's going on with management, what's been going on. I've been defending Phil Spencer for years because I said with the Xbox One, after what that fumbling the ball that they've done, especially with the last CEO that was running it, Don Matrick, and his stupid statement that he said, if you want to always be able to play online, there's also the Xbox 360, and they kept pushing emphasis on DRM and always having the Xbox One fully connected. And when Phil Spencer came in, he had to come in and clean up what Don Matrick had created, the mess that he had caused and stuff, and he had to clean that up. But at the same time, as I said, Phil Spencer realized that, hey man, there's nothing much we can do for the Xbox One. We need to start looking forward to the future and start preparing for the next console. And this is where you start seeing Microsoft start acquiring so many different studios and everything. And I kept telling Xbox fans, wait for the next console. If you're expecting all these first parties that release on the Xbox One, get that out your head. They're already looking forward to the future, and all these studios they're acquiring, they won't be able to have any of these titles done for the Xbox One anyway. They might as well start developing for the Xbox, whatever the next console may be, which is now the Xbox Series S and X. And I stood by that, and I still stand by it to this day, that Microsoft can still pull a W. They can still pull through with this. Now it's time to bring everything together and actually start releasing games. They need to start releasing games and saying, hey, Xbox is the brand that you guys should game on. Make it more desirable so more gamers can play on it, and make it more desirable for Japanese developers. I'm not going to discredit Microsoft, because they really tried with the Xbox 360 to get Japanese developers. They've been releasing a ton of Japanese developed games, but it just seemed like it just was not sticking when it came from the Western consumers, and also the Japanese consumers wasn't really buying into the Xbox brand, which also hurt that as well. But I've been sticking by Phil Spencer, and now at this point I can't defend this guy. I don't know what's been going on with Phil Spencer and management and everything, especially with the whole Redfall situation, where these guys have, you know, with the whole 30 frames per second situation. And then we have Starfield. We know that game is going to release at 30 frames per second, and the game doesn't really look that great to me at all. But I can get into that to a whole nother video. But I don't know what's been going on, and to me, I think Microsoft definitely just needs a shakeup. It definitely needs a shakeup. I think Phil Spencer needs to step down. I think they need to move him out the way, put a new face in there and put new people in place in order to get Xbox to where it needs to go. Because Phil Spencer's as of right now, he's been dropping the ball. I don't know what's been going on with him. And you know, they have so many of these titles, or so many of these studios that they acquire, and we have yet to see anything. And then these guys keep saying that, hey guys, we have everything, we have a lot in stored, and they have not been delivering. And I feel sorry for the Xbox community. I feel sorry for its fan base and its ecosystem. Is because they've been very patient, they have been very faithful to the brand, and they just have not been delivering to the fans. And it's just now to the point it looks pitiful and embarrassing how you have some Xbox content creators making excuses. People like Colt Eastwood, who I used to really watch, but I think this guy is a total shield for Microsoft at this point, of how, even though he tries to give a little bit of pushback, but at the same time, this dude just gives false hope to his community. And I can just go down a list of other content creators that does the same thing, but fans are fed up. You can see it on Twitter that fans are like, yo, Microsoft, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, what's up? Where's the games? And on top of that, Game Pass doesn't help the situation either, because now we are seeing reports that actually Game Pass stunts physical sales when it comes to games, because now what gamers are doing is they just wait for the game to release on Game Pass instead of going out physically buying the game, which I'm not really a digital guy anyway, but I understand that we're heading to a more digital era when it comes to gaming in general and just technology in general. But as far as the Game Pass is concerned, I never bought into the Game Pass, for the simple fact is that, perfect example with Steam. I have Steam, and the problem what I have with Steam is I catch all these game sales. I constantly buy these digital games, but I never play them. I have a bunch of games on Steam that I never played, never installed, or I play some of them, never finish them, move on to the next game, because there's so many games available. And that's the same thing with Game Pass, in my personal opinion, because I watched my brother Keo Lancer and DX Strike when they got the Game Pass. You know, and they own all the consoles like I do as well, the PS5 and the Nintendo Switch as well. But when we got the Series X on launch day, these guys got Game Pass, and these guys went crazy. They was just like, oh man, all these games I can play and stuff. And I was watching both my brothers install games, play them only for a couple minutes, exit out that game, play the next game. They weren't staying with the games. They just constantly kept playing them until eventually they just stopped playing them. And I think that's the problem. Game Pass should be more of a compliment, you know, to the brand rather than it being a detriment to the brand. It's like they're focusing heavily on subscriptions, and we are starting to understand that the subscription-based model really doesn't sustain itself. If you look at perfect examples of Netflix and other streaming services that's going on right now, they can't really sustain the levels of subscriptions because there's too many subscription platforms on top of that. And two, if there's no games and you're not pushing out quality games, or there's not enough first party games that people want for that console, people are going to unsubscribe and move on to other things. And how much farther will people, how much farther can you increase the margin for subscribers? Eventually there's going to be I guess you could say a downturn, or there's going to be a stagnant growth in subscriptions. At some point, you're going to get enough people to subscribe to the platform. So them to rely on just subscriptions and Game Pass, I think is a terrible idea. And we also starting to see that a lot of Xbox gamers aren't buying games. They're not buying them. They're just getting Game Pass, and that's going to eventually hurt chances of other games, especially Japanese developers, for going onto their platform. So they have to start encouraging gamers to buy physical games again, physical media, which I've always said I'm a big proponent of physical media. Hell with the digital, unless there's no other way to get it, and the only way to get it is digital. That's one thing for me. But if there's a chance that I can get it physical, best believe I can get it physical. And we already know the potential is there for Microsoft and the Xbox brand, for the simple fact is, hey, look at Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush, without any type of advertisement and shadow drop, and the game itself is actually a pretty good game from what everybody is saying. And when I get a chance, I'm going to go purchase the game myself. But I would love to have it physical. Why is it digital? I would love to have a physical copy so I can add that to my brand. You know, to what I'm trying to do with my setup with the Xbox Series X, having all these Japanese developed games on the platform. And yet there's still no physical copy. If it was smart, I think, to recapture and double dip in sales, re-release it in a physical form, and I will buy it day one. Not only have it digital, I will buy it also physical. I would double dip. So the potential is there, and Microsoft is just not capitalizing on it. And speaking of capitalizing on it, when it comes to even their first party, there's so many dormant franchises that they have that they can simply revive and actually compete against Sony and also Nintendo. Who remember Fusion Frenzy? That right there alone can be their Mario Party. That right there, there's so much they can do with Fusion Frenzy that they can really set that up. They can treat it as a live service game if they want, even though I hate it. But I think if the best way, you can do a live service is to have Fusion Frenzy and keep adding different games to it and stuff like that. Come on, Blinks the cat. They should bring Blinks back. They can be a mascot for Microsoft. They can really push more platforming action with Blinks the cat. What about Kung Fu Chaos? Well, I think that's made by Bungie. I don't think that'll ever happen again. But we had games like Kung Fu Chaos. They also had their own RPG, which was called Sudeki, which was for the original Xbox, which was really, really unique for its time. They had so many great titles that they could put out there and release, and they're just not capitalizing on it. They're sitting on all these golden franchises. Killer Instincts. There should have been a sequel to Killer Instincts. Like, Phil Spencer, what the hell are you doing? Y'all proved that Killer Instincts is a viable fighting game, and it's exclusive to you guys. So that would get people to buy consoles simply for Killer Instincts alone. And yet there's no sequel for it yet. And fans has been loyal to the Xbox brand until Killer Instincts and still playing that game till this day. And yet they still have yet to receive a sequel, while we're just now about to get Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, and all these other fighting games is about to come out, and Mortal Kombat 12, and yet there's still no sequel to KI for the Xbox game console. What are you guys doing? I don't understand at all. And if anything, you have to work on getting more Japanese developers, because Microsoft, to me, like their relationship with Sega back in the day, I thought was phenomenal. It was like the revival of the Sega Dreamcast, and this is why that I treat my Xbox like a Dreamcast. We need to see more Japanese developed games. You know, I would love to see a new Jet Set radio game for the Xbox Series X. Come on, guys, what are you doing? But that pretty much wraps this video. I know it's almost going on 30 minutes. I know I was talking too long in this video, but Microsoft, you know, you guys used to be a big player in the gaming industry, and you guys revolutionized the gaming industry in so many ways, where you have the competition even following your footsteps in regards of their online and just gaming in general for Western developers to really start pouring into console gaming, all because of you guys. And I don't know what's up, man. Y'all need to get it together. I'm still rooting for you guys, but come on, man. So if you like this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. I really appreciate the love you guys have been showing for the past couple of weeks with my recent videos, man. You don't understand. I'm really loving the love. I'm really loving the fact that I'm seeing new faces in the comment sections from you guys, leaving your thoughts and opinions. And I'm glad that you guys are sticking around for the content that I have. So that wraps this video up. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you Game Fiends later. Peace out.